Today we're chatting with Dot King, who donated many of the most valuable and fascinating artifacts in the museum. And now she's going to tell us the stories behind them. Welcome, Dot.
Thank you.
We're going to start with these handmade hooked rugs that she donated. Tell us the story behind them.
Yes, my aunt Nita was very interested in being creative, really, and she was going to make some hand-hooked rugs. This was quite an undertaking because it took a lot of fabric or the yarn. So she would say, ask all of the children, I guess that are all of the grandchildren, to save the woolen garments, and she used them in making the hooked rug. Actually, we would give her the woolen garment. She would cut it into little strips, and there were occasions she had to dye it because she had a design on the back of this that was burlap. And after she had drawn her design, she knew the colors she was anxious to use, so she had to dye some of them. Now, the little items that she used up here for the hooking is still available. I mean, they're still on display. So I think it's interesting. The only problem was after she had made all these rugs, she had them on the floor in her living room. And after I had seen these, she had made this one also over here. My cousin said the only problem is if you start to vacuum, they may start coming unhooked in a row, and you may have to make a repair. It did not happen to me because I didn't own one of those rugs, but that was interesting because I thought, oh, and this is another thing. Her husband was he was a diabetic, and she felt like that he had, after he had an amputation on one leg, she felt that he should be busy as well as she. And she was doing the hooking of rugs, so she had my uncle start doing the needlepoint. So these chairs that have needlepoint on them was done by Jack, her husband. But I thought that was interesting because she was a person who was interested in staying busy, and she thought he should stay busy in his wheelchair. And that was his production.
Very good. And this is her dress over there, I think?
Well, it is not her dress. This was a dress of our, really, it would be my great-grandmother. It would be her grandmother. And this is a picture of Grandpa Miles and his wife. He was captain in service in the war. His wife's name was Abigail, and he was Captain Robert E. Miles. And this was a dress that actually it belonged to Abigail. She was a smith and married my grandpa. But anyway, it was back in the 1860s that it was restored. Oh, wait just a minute. That's not right. The fabric is made in Lisle. Oh, let's see. It's made in Lisle, Lisle, Northern France. It appears to be very durable after, when you think about it, it dates back to 1860. Well, I guess it would be durable.
That is in good shape.
I had to find some antique buttons because, when they saved their buttons and after a garment was outgrown, they would take the buttons off and save it to put on the next garment. And all these garments were handed down. Oh, let's see. This was also some handwork that she did.
That framed needlepoint.
Right, the needlepoint up there.
And you said she also made quilts.
She did.
We have one over here that has
She was very interested.
dolls on it.
Yes. She wanted every one of her dolls or sundresses or whatever to be different. And you'll notice that they are. Everyone is dressed differently.
That's quite a lot of work.
It is quite a lot of work.
How long do you think it took her to make that?
Oh, I can't say. Let's see. It says This quilt is called the Southern Lady, handmade by Juanita Carrell in 1973. Juanita lived to be 99 years old. She lived in Montgomery County all her life. She was born in the Odie community. Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk about the Odie community.
Okay.
This is my family, actually. My father, my mother, and the there's four children there. And I am one of them. But my father built all the houses we ever lived in. This was a log structure that he built. This was a rock house that he built. And in later years, he felt he needed to have a one floor plan, so he built the same one on the same property. And this is out near the entrance. But Odie, my nephew, is still living here in this house. It has been a different roof put on and several other things. But Aunt Nita and he were brother and sister. So in Odie, I'm not sure that we have a picture of their home.
Well, we're looking now at a page in Voices from Eastern Montgomery County, the book that the Pools put together.
That's right.
And it shows pictures of the houses you were referring to.
Well, it probably has a picture of their house also, but I do not have it handy. These are some ancient Bibles that are in the Sisson generation. This is a Bible of 1833, the Ludlow Branham Sisson Bible, and this one was the Miles Bible, and that goes back to the 1800s. Now, that was in the Odie community, both families.
Well, let's talk about our most prized artifact over here.
Well, it is.
Tell everyone what it is.
They called it a coverlet back then, and we probably would call it a blanket or something else.
Bedspread, maybe.
Probably bedspread. It was used in the Civil War back in 1832. It was handed down through the Ludlow Sisson family, and the legend has it that the Union troops were pillaging the South. So one of the Sisson children hid this blanket, which had a turkey platter wrapped inside it, up a hollow log near the home place. Later, it was retrieved after the danger was over. The center, it was salvaged as a coverlet. The edges were worn, so the coverlet was cut through the middle, and the outside edges were brought to the center and sewn together again. This can be seen in the coverlets from over 150 years old. And if you look at it, it is a reversed image.
I see.
On this side.
Yeah, I never saw the other side before. Uh-huh.
And it has houses and so forth. It looks like something from really, it's been damaged, but it really is remarkable that it's this old.
Do you think these represent real buildings?
I think maybe they did,
Yeah.
yes, don't you think?
Uh-huh.
Looks like something in, they're just buildings, I guess, that were early American.
And where was this made?
I thought it was made in Gallipolis, Ohio, because I saw something on here that was indicating, let's see if I can find it. It seems to be woven in it, though.
Oh, you think that those words are woven in
Yes,
there somewhere?
Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see this?
Yes.
All right, here.
It's kind of,
All right.
there we go.
Can you tell? Manufactured by J.A. Van Flack. I'd say Gallipolis, Ohio, wouldn't you?
That looks right.
Okay. Well, that has been hidden, but that is available.
And how did your family come by it?
Well, my mother had this, and she said, "Oh, you can have it." And it was in a drawer at my house. And I thought it needs to go in the museum. So I don't know how she came of it, unless it was her mother who gave it to her. But it's been several different generations. I was interested in telling about when I was growing up. My father had us go along with him, he was going to use anything that was natural, the natural logs, the natural stone, and the natural stone here. When we were very young, we would go out with him, and he had a tractor that he attached to a flatbed truck, and he would drive along the riverbed, and we would help him collect or tell him a rock that was a smooth surface, and then he would get it and put it on the cart. But he was going to use them for this, but he wanted one side that would be smooth. Now, that wall is about this thick because you couldn't get the rock unless it had another side to it. So it was very heavy, very thick walls.
You're referring to this stone house in the
Stone house
in
here.
the Pools
Yes.
book. Mhm.
Now, actually, when he was ready to do this stone house, they were living in this one. And my mother said, when she went out to the large barn, he was building something. And she said, "What are you making?" And he said, "I'm making a monument." She said, "A what?" "A monument." And when he checked, he was making his tombstone.
Oh,
And he said, "I'm a rock man, so I would like to be recognized as a rock man."
he was
So
looking ahead.
Yes, he was looking ahead. So it is up on the Piedmont Cemetery, and it was in use, yes. They both are buried there.
Okay,
He
and-
built this house because he said it was too hard for them to maneuver the stairs as they got older.
I see.
Dad lived to be 93. Actually, I'll soon be that age myself.
Tell us, just for the record, your parents' names.
Ford Sisson, and my mother's name was Lila. She was Lila Shepherd. And these are all the children. There are 5 girls in this family. I wanted to tell you something I thought was interesting. When we were still living in this, the cabin, we had apple butter making out in the area out this way, under the trees, apple trees. And when they made the apple butter, it was a festivity as far as I was concerned. I was very young, running around barefoot, and I stepped on a live coal.
Ooh.
And it was terrible. And I was crying and upset, but the lady that was helping us said, "I know what we can do for that." She said, "Give me a raw potato." All right. This was Effie Hickman. We took the raw potato, scoop it out, and pack it on that sore, and then use a cloth to hold it in place. That was soothing.
Really?
It helped with, yes, I still think of her whenever I have any burn because it is soothing and healing. And she was the one who gave us the method to use. I thought that was interesting.
Well, we have the apple butter
kettles are in
kettle
there.
in the museum.
Yes.
And those are the originals.
Yes, they are. They really are. But I thought of her so often. Let's see, was there anything else that we were going to?
Well, we can talk about the doll collection.
That's true.
Let's go into the doll room.
Right, the doll room.
And this was Aunt Nita again.
Yes. A friend of mine dedicated a lot of these because she traveled with her husband in service, and she got a lot of these that you could tell. This one, of course, would be Frances Evans. She was my next door neighbor, and after she collected all these dolls, they were given to the museum. Here are the dolls that she decided they should be honored for her ancestors.
And this is Aunt
is-
Nita's dolls.
That's right. Aunt Nita made up these dolls, and this was Grandma Molly. So that would be her mother.
Grandma Molly, the one with the pearls.
Yes, the ones with the pearls. And Abigail Smith dolls, perhaps, let's see, I'm not sure whether this one was the one that she had for Abigail or whether it was one of these. Anyway, there is one supposed to be for Grandma Abigail and one for Grandma Molly.
Okay.
And these other 2, I'm not sure about. Oh, the doll cabinet she had made.
Aunt Nita
had made so that she could store her doll dishes. So all of these things she was interested in. She taught first grade. So that was the one reason that she was so interested in dolls and all of the doll furnishings.
Did she have a dollhouse too?
She did.
Yeah.
But I thought that was, I don't have it on display, but she did a lot with that. Both my father and Aunt Nita were very frugal because they were from a family of 10. And everyone had to do their share of the work, and everyone had to make ends meet and be as frugal as possible. And all of their clothing had to be handed down, so you had to protect it because the next one down's going to need it, and that type thing. And as I grew up, I had a lot the same type thing. My father, he felt the only food that was really good to eat was some that you had produced and canned. And we had to be very frugal also. But I guess it was born and bred in both Aunt Nita and my father, Ford.
They were talented in crafts making.
You're right.
Obviously.
It's true because they had a gift of maybe being artistic too. Because there's a few people who could put all those rocks together and make a house.
Yeah, not only a house, but rugs, furniture.
Right. And
dolls.
my father, that's right, my father built furniture.
And tools too.
He built both houses, and he built, yes, there were tools. I know there was a crosscut. No, it wasn't crosscut. It was a type of size that he had made, and it's in the display room over here, along with the apple butter kettle. So things were produced and saved.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your childhood while you're at it.
All right.
Did you feel deprived, or did you feel like you had everything you needed?
I was one of 5 girls. I did not feel deprived because everybody, actually, I was born in 1930, so it was after after things were pretty scarce.
Right.
And Dad was in the process of building the stone house, and he was employed, but not constantly. He would have gaps in his employment, and that would give him time to work on the house.
And where was he employed?
He was employed, actually, he was a he was the builder right under the contractor. The contractor was his brother-in-law, and my father was superintendent of construction, and he did a lot of building. In fact, he built some of the structures at VPI.
So many of the things he worked on are still...
That's right, exactly. The library before it was remodeled, and several of the dormitories. So it was local enough that he could go there. When he had a problem with cataracts, though, and he was not able to work during the time that he had to be off, and he could do some types of work on the house during the time that he could not do his construction work. He had to have the cataract operation and did very well afterwards. So
he got steady work during the Depression?
it was off and on.
Off and on.
That was not constant during that time. I remember that. And that was when the time he was gathering the rocks and making the house and so forth. So, yes, those kinds of things I remember. And I remember when we first got electricity. That was quite a deal because we got a refrigerator and we didn't have room for it in the other portion of the house, and it was in the corner of the living room that we had to put the refrigerator because of the wiring and so forth. But that was a big deal to us.
Sure. About what year was that, or how old were you then?
Oh, isn't that funny? I don't remember my age. We'll say I was around 10, maybe. I don't know. But electricity was not. And we had the old-fashioned telephone. It was locally owned, really. And it was interesting because our signal was 2 shorts and a long. And my sister was visiting her cousins, and someone had said, "Oh, I'd like to call you. What's your number?" And she said, "It's 2 shorts and a long," which meant nothing, of course, to the person who was living in Roanoke. I thought that was interesting to us.
And that was a party line.
That was a party line, yes. And sometimes people could listen in on whatever you had to say because they were seldom had visitors, so they found that they could get the news that way.
I see. And tell us about your mother.
Mother, she got tired of doing all that canning.
I bet.
She had all of us busy with that sort of thing. We always had a big garden, and she was interested in the home demonstration. They came out and had their meetings, and she was very interested in that and helpful, I guess. And she taught school, but not while we were real young.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to tell
I
us?
can't think of anything really offhand. These things pop in my mind when you see a reminder of some sort, you know.
Sure. Well,
That's basically my childhood, I guess. And the school was so close we could walk to the school at Odie. Our house was down in the valley, and it was a very short distance up the river road to our school.
and what was the school like?
The school, well, it had 1 through, we didn't have kindergarten there. We had 1st through 5 was there in that building. And we had to go to, well, really it was go into the other community there in Allegheny for the other grades, 6, 7, and 8. And then we were transferred over to Shawsville.
So that was a bit of a hike to Shawsville, wasn't
We
it?
had the bus. That was interesting too, the bus. It was a bus with long seats. And if you got on the bus last, that was fine. But if the bus pulled off quickly, you got scooted on there, and the person who was at the back got most of the weight. So sometimes I had the weighty seat because I was close to where the bus pulled out. It was close to my place, so I was one of the first ones on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was near the back, and that was not too much fun sometimes.
Well, thank you, Dot.
Well, you're welcome.
It's
It
been
was
a pleasure. Likewise. Maybe we'll talk again soon if you think of some other stories you'd like to tell us.
All right.